Well, today we're continuing our series called Unstuck, where we've been looking at a topic. It doesn't matter where your passport is from, no matter what language you speak, no matter what job that you have. It's a topic that impacts all of us, and it's the topic of money. And I know that all of us at some point, we're going to wonder, do I have enough? Do I have enough to pay the bills? Do I have enough in case an emergency would pop up? Do I have enough for my future that I want to have? All of us have asked that at some point. Is there going to be enough? Money consumes our mind. It consumes our thoughts. In fact, Jesus talks about money then more than he talks about anything else. He talks about it more, and he even talks about heaven and hell combined, because he knew that this was going to play such an integral part of our thinking all the time. And he needed to make sure that we had control over money, and money did not have control over us. Let me say that again. Jesus' focus was that we would have control over money, not that money would control us, but yet so many of us find ourselves controlled by money. And so that's what this whole series has been about, because a lot of you are stuck. You're stuck in the stress. You're stuck in the worry. You're stuck living paycheck to paycheck. You're stuck like with all this unknown about the future. You're stuck in that. And so what we want to do is help you to find financial freedom. And so what I shared with you back in week 1 is that, look, we don't really have an income problem. What we actually have is what? We have a spending problem. And if you have a spending problem, what that means is you actually have a heart problem. If you have a heart problem, that means you have a spiritual problem. And that's why Jesus talks about this so much, because he's concerned about your heart. That you haven't made money your God. That you've made him your God. And then last week we talked about how so many people are in debt, like mass amounts of debt. I'm talking like consumer debt. This debt that just weighs you down and it holds you back. It keeps you up late at night just worrying about it. And remember, we've looked at a scripture throughout this series that the borrower is a what? Do you remember a borrower is a slave to the lender? None of us want to be slaves. And so last week I shared with you the debt snowball and how you can get out of debt really, really fast. Today then, as we continue the series, I want to talk about your future. What does it look like going forward? And so let's jump right into our big idea for the day. If you're taking notes, here it is. As a wise person, I'm not going to sacrifice my future for what I think I need today. Say that again. As a wise person, you're a wise person, right? Yes. Yeah? Right? Are there any fools in here? No? Okay. So as a wise person, I'm not going to sacrifice my future for what I think I need today. In other words, don't spend everything that you get today. Stop living paycheck to paycheck. Save up and prepare for your future. Now, some of you, as I'm saying that, you're going, oh, maybe I'm not quite as wise as what I thought I was. But we can take one of the greatest financial lessons of all time, not from a human being. We can actually learn it from an ant. Now, here in Costa Rica, we have ants everywhere, don't we? I mean, ants are just everywhere. But have you ever watched them and be amazed by the work that these little ants do? And Solomon, who was the wisest man who ever lived, here's what he writes. Look at Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 to 8. He says, you lazy people can learn by watching an anthill. Ants don't have leaders, but they store up their food during the summer, getting ready for what? They're getting ready for the winter. Ants are smart enough to prepare for the winter. They know that the winter is coming. And it's the same way for us. Now, not literally, because here in Costa Rica, we don't really have winter like most of the rest of the world. We have rainy season, which is often called winter, but man, we're still all in shorts and t-shirts, right? All year round. But in a lot of parts of the world where they have snow, ants, little ants, they're smart enough to go, you know what? Everything's really good today, but maybe in the future, it's not going to be okay. Maybe once it starts to snow, I'm not going to be able to get all this abundant food, so maybe I should be smart enough to save some of it for the future. And so Solomon is saying to us, be like the ant. Be wise like the ant. Learn from the ant. Don't spend everything today. You got to store some of it up for the future because winter is coming for us financially. A car is going to break down. You're going to have a home repair that you weren't ready for. A medical bill is going to pop up. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you have a family member that's in need. You have got to prepare before the crisis hits. Don't make an emergency into a crisis. All of us, again, we're going to have emergencies sometimes, but don't make it into a crisis. And how do you not make it into a crisis? You store up. You learn from the ant how to prepare for the future. Here's what we read in Proverbs 21:20. Wise people, you, right? Wise people live in wealth and luxury, but foolish people spend their money as fast as they get it. So wise people save up. Fools spend everything that they make. Now, here's what we could say if we wanted to translate this a little bit differently. Wise people live in wealth and luxury, but foolish people live paycheck to paycheck. Foolish people live paycheck to paycheck. Now, I want you to notice here that Solomon doesn't say that wise people earn more money. No, he says that wise people, they save their money for the future. The difference here isn't income. The difference is stewardship, not spending everything that you make. So here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to give you a little bit of an illustration. Let's pretend like it's payday. And this is what you got paid, $100, right? I got 20, 40, 60, 80, 90, $100. Now, I'm just using this because, well, it's the only play money I could find. But this applies, it doesn't matter if you're making $100 per paycheck or $1,000 per paycheck or $10,000 per paycheck or $1 million per paycheck. The principles all work the same here of what we're going to talk about, okay? And at $100, it just makes the math a little bit easier. Here's the mistake that so many people make. They do this. They get $100 and they go, all right, I got my mortgage or my rent to pay, and I got a car payment that I got to make, and I got the utility bills that I got to do, and you know I've got like Netflix and my cable and all that kind of stuff that I want, and Starbucks, I got to go to Starbucks. I need my coffee, right? I got to do that, right? And then you just find other ways that you're going to waste $10 or 10% there in a week, and all of a sudden, all the money is gone, and you are hoping and praying, oh Jesus, please let that next payday come around fast because there is no more money for me. Right? You got a paycheck and then you just spent all of it. And the result is you're stressed about money. You feel stuck financially. But what we just read from Solomon there in Proverbs is that is the plan of a fool. It's foolish if you're just living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. Wise people save for the future. Now, what are we going to save for? Well, let me give you 3 things there on your outline that we're going to save up for. Number 1, I must save for emergencies. Again, life happens. Car breaks down, refrigerator goes bad. Maybe you have to make an unexpected trip back to your home country because one of your loved ones is going to have to go through surgery, or maybe somebody passed away. And so you got to save up for things like that. We don't want these problems to become disasters. And so who remembers from last week, we talked about you have to have an emergency fund. We called it the Oh No Fund. You remember how much we want to have in our Oh No Fund? Well, yeah, $1,000. We're going to put $1,000 into an emergency fund. That's the first thing you want to be saving for. Put $1,000 in an emergency fund. Now, is that going to cover every single emergency that ever comes up? No, there's going to be some things that are going to be above and beyond that. But at least you have a little bit of something that can cover most of the emergencies that do come up when that oh no happens. Wise people, they prepare for the oh no's. Number 2, I must save for major purchases. Things that you know you're going to have to do in the future, you're just not sure when it's going to take place. Let me give you an example. Last week we talked about like the debt snowball and getting yourself out of debt. And if you remember in the illustration I used with you, you had a $350 per month car payment. And so what we looked at last week is how do you, as quickly as possible, get rid of like all of your debt. And so once you have all of your debt gone, including that $350 car payment, the mistake that most people make is they go, oh, that's an extra $350 I can spend on all kinds of other stuff. But here's what you should do. This is what the wise person does. Take that same $350 and instead of making a car payment to the bank, now start taking that same $350 and make a car payment to yourself. Every single month, you're going to make a car payment to yourself. Does this make sense? You don't owe the bank anymore, but now you're starting to save up for the future. You're saving up for when your car does break down because $350 this month to myself, $350 this month to myself, $350 this month. You keep adding that up. That's $4,800 every single year that you're setting aside for a future car. Over a 5-year period, that's $22,000 that you've set aside for a car. This is how Lisa and I, the last 8 cars that we've bought, we've paid cash for. Why? Because every single month we pay a car payment for a future car that we don't need today, but we do know we're going to need it in the future. And that way we don't have to take a loan where you're paying all this interest on it. By the way, car loans are the absolute worst loan that you can get because the very moment you drive a car off the lot, it immediately depreciates. Like you could literally buy the car, drive off the lot, go around the block, come back into the car dealership and say, hey, I want to trade in this vehicle, and they're going to give you about half of what you just paid for it. So putting money into cars and into the interest on cars is so bad. It's foolish. It's not the wise thing to do. All right, number 3. I must save for the future. I mean, my guess is this. You don't want to have to work until the day that you die. My guess is that as you get older, you want to slow down a little bit. And there still may be work that you're doing, but it's just not that you have to get paid for it. You're like now being able to volunteer and do things, or, you're just not really concerned about the income anymore, and you want to be able to retire if possible. But that's never going to happen if you don't start planning for it today. Again, the ant, it saves up for the future. Wise people need to be saving up for the future. Now, some of you may be going, isn't saving like a lack of faith in God? And the answer to that is no. It's actually obedience, because when you have more, it gives you more options to do what it is that God wants you to do. Remember, we talk about it all the time. It's not just following Jesus. It's not just being changed by Jesus. We need to be on the mission of Jesus. Money just gives you more opportunities of what to do with your time. And so if you have more money, now you can have the time to go 2 weeks down to Peru on a missions trip. Or maybe go a month to Peru. Or maybe go for an entire year to Peru on a missions trip. Why? Because you're not stressed about the money anymore. Wise people save up for the future. More money also allows you to have more generosity, that if you see a need, you're able to meet the need. So actually saving for the future, it's the wise thing to do. It's the obedient thing to do, because you can do more of what God wants you to do. Now, everybody says that that's sort of what they want for their future, but why is it that so many people struggle with this? Well, it's something we've talked about every single week of this series. Too many people have confused needs, wants, and desires. Let me run through it again with you. I want you really to get this. Too many people are confusing needs, wants, and desires. So you need to eat. You may want to eat out. And at that restaurant, you may desire like the most expensive thing on the menu. But there's a difference between the need of eating, wanting to eat out, and then desiring the most expensive thing on the menu as far as the price is concerned. All of us, we need transportation of some sort. So you need transportation. You may want your own vehicle, and your desire may be that that's a luxury vehicle, but there's a huge difference between like an Uber or a bus fare and then owning your own car and then owning a very expensive luxury car. It gets more expensive. Needs, wants, and desires. All of us need a roof over our head. We need shelter. So you need that. You may want your own house, and then your desire may be that it's your dream house. But again, there's a huge difference in the cost of having a roof over your head versus owning your own home versus having a luxury or a dream home. So we can't confuse those things anymore. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting things and desiring things. It's just you can't confuse your needs for wants and desires. That makes sense? All right. So let's look at our big idea again for the day. Here it is. A wise person, or as a wise person, I'm not going to sacrifice my future for what I think I need today. Now, throughout this series, I've been sharing with you Lisa and I's story of how we went from being completely broke to financial independence, that we have absolutely no debt at all. We don't have a mortgage. We don't have a car payment. We don't have credit card debt. We have no loans, no consumer debt, 100% debt free. Remember, the borrower is a slave to the lender. We are not in slavery any longer. But that didn't happen accidentally. And so I've shared with you our story that when God called me to become a pastor, we actually took a 72% pay decrease, barely living above the poverty level at that point. But yet we made a decision that even then we were only going to live off of 60% of our income. I shared that with you last week, that we were only living off of 60% of our income. In other words, every single bill in our life had to be paid out of only 60% of our income. You're going, well, where did the other 40% go? Well, let's talk about that here today. All right. So what happened for Lisa and I was it'd be payday. And again, hypothetically, our pay was $100. What we did was we said, you know what? We're going to first of all honor God, because his word says we're to honor God with the first 10% of our income and give that to him through our local church. So that left $90. What we decided to do then was to take the next 30%, the next $30, and pay ourselves before we paid anybody else. So God got paid first, and then we paid ourselves. Then that left just $60, 60% of our income for all of our bills. And as I shared with you last week, that was an extreme sacrifice, because 30% to the future, 10% to God, only 60%. Now, you can do that if you want, make that extreme sacrifice, but here's what I'm actually going to recommend to you. It's payday for you, all right? Your pay is $100. Honor God first with the tithe. And then what I'm going to suggest to you is that you would take the next 20%. Again, Lisa and I did 30%, but you can follow this plan, and the next 20%, you're going to pay that into your future. And what are we paying into the future at first? What's the first thing I said that all of our money's going into first? We were building up an emergency fund, the Oh No fund. So you're going to, every single time you get a paycheck, you're going to put 20% of your paycheck into that emergency fund until you've built up $1,000. It's with this remaining 70%. This is where your mortgage comes from, or your rent. This is where your car payments come from. This is where your groceries come from. Your utilities come from this. Any special things you want to be doing, vacations or kids' activities that you're doing, anything that you do has to come out of this 70% to pay all of your bills. All right. Now, eventually you're going to have $1,000 built up into your Oh No fund. Now, when payday comes around, your pay again is $100. The first 10%, you're going to honor God with the tithe. That's going to go back to him through the local church. The next 20%, you're going to put into the future. So what did we say after the Oh No fund? What are we going to do? We're going to start to Pay off debt, right? We're going to eliminate debt. We're going to do the debt snowball. So you're going to start pouring 20% of every single paycheck into getting your debt paid off. Now, by the way, if during this time you should have a raise or a bonus, if you get an inheritance of some sort, you're always going to take that, honor God with 10% of whatever that raise or bonus was, the inheritance, but then you're going to take all that extra and you're going to put it into getting it paid off this debt. Just because you get a raise doesn't mean that you raise your standard of living until you've earned the right to be able to raise your standard of living. At first, you want to be putting every single new dollar into getting your debt paid off. And that leaves us with that 70% for your groceries and your rent and all the other things that you're typically doing. All right. Eventually, you're going to have your debt all paid off. And by the way, if you weren't here last week, we looked at how the average Costa Rican has $22,500 in consumer debt. And I shared a plan last week to pay off all of that debt, $22,500, in only 2 years and 9 months. So if you missed it, make sure you go back online and watch how to do that. So it's going to take a little while that you've built up the emergency fund. You've now got your debt all paid off. And now is when things get really, really fun. Because we're going to get our payday, 10%. We're honoring God with 10% of every single paycheck. 10% belongs to God. We're going to then put 20% into our future in investments. 70% then is going to pay off our bills. Now, here's why I say this is fun. Because now we are investing for the future. Now we are preparing like the ant does so that we don't have to work for the rest of our lives. And this is going to be absolutely amazing for us. We are now building wealth. But let me remind you, wealth is not built in 1 month. Wealth is built year in, year out, decade after decade. Here's what we read in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11. Money earned little by little will grow and grow. Not overnight, not instantly, not through some sort of get-rich-quick scheme, not by playing the lottery. No, it's consistency. It's making the right decision day in and day out, week in and week out. Every single time a paycheck comes in, you make the right decision. And it's through this consistency that you're going to achieve wealth. Now, one of the questions you may have is this: is investing even a biblical thing? And the answer to that is yes, it is. Jesus actually tells a pretty incredible story. It's found in Matthew chapter 25. It's about this guy. He's a back up, Rach. You're getting ahead of me. Thank you. Give her a big hand. All right. Jesus is telling us an amazing story here in Matthew chapter 25. And it's about this master who's very, very rich. And he has 3 servants. And he decides to go away on a trip. And he says, I need you to invest my money and take care of my money. Be a good steward of my money while I'm away. So he gives each one of them bags of gold to take care of. And then he goes away. Eventually he comes back and he wants an account of what did you do with the money that I entrusted you with? And so here's what we read in Matthew chapter 25, verse 16. The servant who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his, meaning the master's money, to work and gained 5 more. Now, Jesus isn't teaching greed here. He's teaching stewardship, that everything we have belongs to God. You do not own anything. It all belongs to Him. Our responsibility is to faithfully manage what it is that God has given us. Now, by the end of the story, there's one guy who hasn't invested any of it. He was afraid. He went out and he actually buried the gold in the ground. And when the master comes back, he actually says, here it is. I'm giving you everything back. And Jesus says, here's what the master said to him. You wicked, lazy servant. He calls him wicked and lazy because he hadn't taken what he had been given and maximized it. And then we read this. Jesus, in telling the story, says, the master says this to the servant, Matthew 25, 27. You could have at least put my money in the bank so I could have earned interest on it. Even there, Jesus is saying you should at least put your money in the bank. Now, I wouldn't recommend putting money in the bank as an investment because you're not even gonna outpace inflation with that, right? You have to have a little bit of money in the bank, but we want to start getting our money into places where it's actually going to grow faster than inflation, and all of a sudden you can allow your money to start to work for you, so that your money is making money, so that you don't have to be the one that's always out making money. So part of good, faithful stewardship is putting our resources to work, not letting them sit idly by. So building wealth is biblical. But as a reminder, most people here, including myself, we just work average, ordinary jobs, 9 to 5. And so this isn't going to happen instantly for us. I mean, maybe you start a business and it takes off and you make a lot of money, but for most of us, it's going to be just the grind of a day in and a day out job. And so wealth isn't built in an instant. It is built year after year, decade after decade. So here's the formula. This is the formula that Lisa and I live by. Ready? Here it is. Time plus money plus consistency equals wealth. Can we say that together? Time plus money plus consistency equals wealth. That's the formula. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, but it works. Now, for those of you that are here today and you're under the age of 30, you know what you really got going for you in this equation? Time. You don't need a lot of money, but you've got a lot of time. And as long as you're consistent, that will equal wealth. Some of you are a little bit older and you haven't been wise. You've been acting more like the fool that we've been looking at today. And so your time is running out. So what that means is you've got to actually do a little bit more of the money. So maybe instead of the 20%, maybe you got to do what Lisa and I have done for the last 26 years, which was 30%. Some of you are getting really old. Maybe you got to start doing 40% to this, right? Because you don't have as much time anymore. And time is working against you. But in any case, time plus money plus consistency equals wealth. Now, I know maybe that word, being wealthy or being rich, maybe that's something that makes you feel uncomfortable. So maybe here's another word that would be better for you. Money gives you margin. Money gives you margin in your life. To not have to be working all the time. To not have all the stress, to have the freedom, to not have as much anxiety. You know what margin also does? It allows you, if you're in a situation like I was a couple years ago, and I shared this story with you last week, that when I left my previous church, I didn't have to rush right into finding another church. I didn't need an income. Lisa and I had the margin then to be able to say, you know what, let's really think and pray through this. Let's take a sabbatical of what is it that God has for us to do next. And so it was during that sabbatical, 3 months here in Costa Rica that we came down. We had the margin, we had the money to be able to do 3 months of that. And it was in the midst of that God spoke and said, well, the plan is for you actually to stay right here in Costa Rica. And so margin is a good thing. You want margin in your life, but realize this, today's decisions impact tomorrow's ability to have margin in your life and to do and to be all that Jesus wants you to do and be. And so let me show you right now the power of consistency. Think about this for a second. Do you think that if you tried hard, you could come up with $5 a day, that you could somehow save $5 a day? Maybe it means that you start packing your lunch instead of going out to eat all the time. Maybe instead of getting Starbucks, you're brewing your own coffee. Maybe you pick up a side hustle of some sort. Maybe you sell off some things. Maybe you get rid of a subscription to something. Maybe a subscription to something is costing you $60 per month. Well, right there would be 12 days of $5 per day, right? So how many of you think that, if I really, really tried, I could probably come up with $5 a day? You think you could figure that out? Folks, this actually isn't all that hard. Could you figure it out? All right. $5 a day. Well, here's what's amazing. If you took that $5 a day and you just started to invest it, getting a normal rate of return, and by the way, we're not going to get into all of it here, but if you need help in how do you get a good rate of return, let me know. Whether you're a Costa Rican or you're from somewhere else in the world, there are ways that you can make a good return on your money. But if you're getting a decent, just even 8% return on your money, which by the way, Lisa and I have always gotten much higher than 8%, but that's what I'm using for the illustration here. If you even got an 8% return on that $5 a day, after 20 years, you would have $116,000. Now that's not life-changing, $116,000. Maybe for some of you it would be. $116,000 isn't necessarily life-changing, but that's $116,000 more than what you have right now, right? That would be a good thing for you to have. And so when it comes to investing, the key isn't how much you're investing, it's that you even just start investing. A lot of people say, well, I'll start investing money when I have a lot of money. No. Start even if it's just $5 a day. See, the problem with waiting for the future is the future very rarely comes when it comes to things like this. And so wise people, they let time do the heavy lifting for them. The sooner you start, the more time is working for you. Again, time plus money plus consistency equals wealth. And that was the secret for Lisa and I. As we started this plan of saying, you know what, we're giving that first 10% to God, but then the next 30%, after we got an emergency fund built up, we had just a little bit of debt, we paid off all the debt, we said now 30% we're investing into the future. $50 in this company, $50 in that company, $50 in this company, $50 in that company. And we kept doing that. And we kept building our portfolio of companies. Time plus money plus consistency. We invested in the same companies every single month for the exact same amount. And now here we are 26 years later, and it's gotten us to the place where we are. It's the same way for you. You need to learn to invest for the future. So let me give you 3 rules, biblical rules for investing. Number 1, I shouldn't try to get rich quick. Everybody's looking for the plan of how do I have it happen now? Even some of you have been coming up to me at the end of the first 2 weeks going, Gilbert, how can I speed this up? All right. Well, the speed up plan would be you'd have to put more in this bucket here. All right. And that's your choice. You can do that. But a lot of people are looking for that shortcut. A lot of people want to win the lottery. Now, can I be just like really blunt with you today? Even if you say no, I'm still going to do it. But anyway, let me be really, really blunt with you today. Here's what I call the lottery. Ready? I call it the stupid tax. If you're playing the lottery, you're contributing to the stupid tax. All that is a way for governments and other organizations to make money off of you, with your dream and your hope to get that shortcut, to get rich quick. Did you know you have a better chance of being in the ocean, and as you are drowning in the ocean, a shark comes up and attacks you, and at the same time that the shark is attacking you as you're drowning, you're struck by lightning? No, I'm not done yet. Not once in your lifetime, but that actually happens twice in your lifetime. That's the same odds of you winning the lottery. So stop paying the stupid tax. Do not play the lottery. Be wise. Don't be a fool anymore. I'm giving you the plan that God has for you, and it is not to get rich quick. I've already shared it with you. This is the get rich slow plan, but it works. So, the old saying is true. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Number 2, I shouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. That's a saying that's been around for many years. You've probably heard that. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. But did you know that that's actually very similar to what the Bible tells us? Look at Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 2. We read this: divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what risks might lie ahead. And so we need to diversify our portfolio. We need to spread things out. Don't put everything into one good idea, into one business, into one investment. No, spread things out. Diversification isn't just good financial wisdom, it's also biblical wisdom. Number 3, I shouldn't invest in things that I do not understand. That's one of the huge problems now with social media, because you got all these social media influencers, right? And they're telling you, buy this, and you buy it. But then some of them are saying, you need to invest in this. Well, they don't know anything about that. They're being paid to tell you to do that. So don't invest in those types of things. You want to be investing in things that you've studied and you've learned about. You've asked questions and you've sought wise counsel about. Here's what we read in Proverbs 19:2. A person without knowledge is no good. A person in a hurry makes mistakes. And so we need to follow, again, this biblical wisdom that we have here. Don't be in a hurry. It's money plus time plus consistency that equals wealth. And so this whole principle that we're talking about here, I actually learned this from Lisa's grandfather. He was a very, very smart man. He was an inventor, made a little bit of money. He loved stocks and various types of investments. And so he told me at one point, he's like, Gilbert, look, he said, do not try to find something you're going to invest in that's going to make you like a 1,000% return on your money, like in a year or 2 years. He said, yeah, that sometimes happens. But for every one company that does that, there's thousands of companies that fail and you lose all your money. He said, instead, here's where you invest your money. Invest it in the companies that are either number 1 or number 2 in the world in what they do. And he said, that doesn't seem like a lot of fun because the growth of those companies is more like this instead of like this. He said, but here's the thing. When they're number 1 or number 2 in the world, they've been probably doing that for many, many years. And he said, so invest in those companies. They're number 1 or number 2 in the world. They've been around for a while. And then he said, here's the important thing. Make sure they're paying what is called a dividend. Now, a dividend simply means this. It's a company saying, you know what? We're going to pay back to our shareholders some of the profits. You hear this in the news all the time, right? About all these corporations and they're all hoarding it for themselves. Well, no, they don't all hoard it for themselves. You know who they give it to? They give it to people like you and I. If we've invested in them, they in turn invest back in us. They pay us part of the profits. And so what Lisa and I have done then is what's called dividend reinvestment. That we tell, and we have about 20 companies that we invest in every single month. And we've been doing it for many, many years. We just give money to these companies every single month. And then every single quarter, they pay to average people profits in the form of a dividend check. But what we told each of these companies is do not send us the check. Instead, take that same money and buy us more of your stock. And so we've done this every single quarter for 26 years. Now all of a sudden our money has been making money for us. And so we actually have some of the companies that every single quarter the reinvestment is actually so big that it would be the equivalent of Lisa and I, our monthly that we do, like a couple years worth of our monthly. That's how big the checks have gotten. Now, I remember when we first started, you look at the checks and it's like 27 cents for this company and 52 cents for this company. But now those checks are thousands of dollars. And so that's how you eventually grow wealth. Time plus money plus consistency equals wealth. Again, we're nobody special, and we've never had a huge income, but we've just followed God's plan. We've followed good financial wisdom as well, and that's where it's gotten us to today. Now, remember earlier I asked you, could you save $5 a day? And most of you are like, no, you were reluctant to put your hand up. But I did the research. The average Costa Rican living here in the Central Valley, as a family, if you followed the plan that I shared with you today, that you honor God first, and you build up the emergency fund, and then you get rid of your debt, then you start investing in the future. Did you know that investment in the future would not be $5 a day for the average Costa Rican? It wouldn't be $10 a day for the average Costa Rican. It would be $16.84 for the average Costa Rican if you followed the plan that I shared here today. And you know what that investment looks like? In 20 years, that's $400,000. In 30 years, that's $1.2 million. Now, there's a lot of you that are here today that you make more than what the average Costa Rican is making. And so in that time plus money plus consistency, you're going to be able to put more money in. I mean, we're talking now life-changing amounts of money. Now, here's the thing. When we talk about life-changing amounts of money, it is not for us to hold tightly to. You've heard this for the past year from me. We are to live our lives with hands wide open. That God placed it there and he can take it all. It's not yours. Lisa and I don't own a house. We don't have a car. We don't have clothes. We don't have anything. It's all God's and he is lending it to us. And if he wants our house, he can take it. If he wants our car, he can take it. If he wants our clothes, he can take it. Hopefully not while I'm preaching. Time plus money plus consistency equals wealth. See, the greatest investment, let me be super, super clear in this. The greatest investment you will ever make is not in stocks. It's not in real estate. It's not in businesses. The greatest investment you will ever make is in people. That's what Jesus wants all of us to be doing, is investing in people. Again, it's not just follow Jesus. It's not just being changed by Jesus. It's you are to be on the mission of Jesus. A big part of what it means to be on the mission of Jesus is that you are investing in people so that they can experience the same grace and the mercy and the love and the forgiveness that you've experienced. And so all that money does for us is it gives us more time to invest in people. What money does is it gives us more money to be generous and help share the gospel with as many people as we possibly can. That's the whole purpose, is to live our lives with hands wide open, to be able to invest more into our kids and our marriages and our community and people all around the world, helping them to hear about what Jesus did for us on the cross. See, here's the deal. When you die, you can't take any money with you. You won't take a house with you. You won't take a car with you. You won't take your retirement account with you. It all stays behind. But what you can take with you is people. So we need to invest in people. So money is just a tool that allows us to do that very thing. Ultimately, getting rich is not the goal. The goal is that you become free from debt, free from anxiety, free from stress, free from living paycheck to paycheck, so that you're free to be generous. You're free to help others. You're free to say yes to God no matter what he may say to you. That if he says, I want you to move halfway around the world, you go, yes, God, I'm doing that. And you're not even concerned about the financial aspect of it. Money is a terrible master, but it's a wonderful servant. And again, money shouldn't control us. We should be the ones that are in control of our money, because when we are in control of money, then we are free to do what God wants us to do. So be the wise person that we talked about earlier. Don't sacrifice your future for what you think that you need today. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity we've had to come together to worship you and to, again, look at your word. And Lord, I know a message like this is where you're talking about savings and investing, and it doesn't seem all that spiritual. But Lord, we know that it ultimately is. Not because we're trying to get rich for our sake, but because we want to be wise stewards of what you've entrusted to us. And we want to be free of all the debt and the stress and the worry that so many other people have. And so, Lord, I pray for each and every person that's here today that your Spirit is just sharing with them what that next step is that they need to be taking. Again, maybe for some people, it's all the way back to last week of just even, stop spending all the money that's coming in. Stop living paycheck to paycheck. Start building up that emergency fund. Start getting out of debt. For others, Lord, maybe they've never started honoring you. For some people, maybe they've never thought about the future. And so maybe they are debt-free, but they're just sort of relying on that money's always going to be there, that paycheck. And Lord, help them to be wise and start to learn from the ant and put some of that forward. Again, not just so that they can have a great life, but so that we can advance your kingdom more and more and more and more. So Lord, whatever that next step is that people need to take, I pray that they would have the boldness and the courage to take it. And Lord, I pray that individually we would just be radically generous. And that as the people of the church are being radically generous, that as the leadership of the church, we're able to be radically generous as well. To help the people here in Costa Rica, to help the people all around the world to hear of who you are, Jesus, and your incredible offer of not just eternal life forever, but an abundant life right here and right now. So help us to be wise and not act like fools. Help us to be like the servant that got the 5 bags of gold and was wise in how he handled the master's money. Jesus, it's all your money. You are the master. So help us to be wise. Help us to be good stewards of everything that you've entrusted us with, so that we can then in turn make sure that every single man, woman, boy, and girl have the opportunity to hear about that amazing grace that we sang about earlier. Jesus, ultimately, that's what we want. We don't want more things just for us. We want more and more and more of you. And so the only way we're going to get more of you, Jesus, is when we're not distracted by all the things that so easily distract us, things like money. And so help our prayer today to be this. Just give me Jesus. Stand on your feet.